Why do Americans romanticize old money so much? When the old money aesthetic was picking up some speed on TikTok a couple of years ago, something I noticed was that it seemed to be glorified by solely Americans and didn't have quite the same impact in the UK or on British TikTok users. And I wanted to answer why. Firstly, Americans aside, I think the old money aesthetic became more popular because people were growing tired of how ugly and soulless modern architecture is, which tends to be associated with new money. Time and time again, we saw beautiful features in homes be completely gutted for greige interiors with absolutely no character. But it wasn't just the architecture and the interiors that was being romanticized, it was the old money lifestyle as well. And there's absolutely a reason why this fantasy did not pick up in the UK the same way it did in the US. Firstly, and less importantly, I do think proximity plays a factor in this. I think the old money aesthetic is so far from the average American's lifestyle and living situation, and it's not like frolicking in manors and owning land is part of the average British person's lifestyle either. But if you grew up in the UK, you're more likely to have spent time in the countryside, which seems to be adjacent to the old money aesthetic. But it's not just this. In the UK, there is a very clear-cut class system, and classism is very deeply embedded in our society. British people will always be classist first, and this isn't just reserved for the wealthy. Some of the most classist people you will ever meet in this country are middle class. The swaying of middle class voters lies solely on the crux of convincing them that they have more in common with the rich than the poor. But because there is such a clear-cut class system in this country, alongside a very deeply entrenched culture of shame, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Really interestingly, there is now a stigma attached to generational wealth, especially amongst young people. We roll our eyes if we found out your parents helped you buy your first home. I find myself wincing a little bit when I find out that someone went to private school. And of course, people can't help the family that they're born into. They didn't choose to go to private school. I sure as hell would not turn down my parents' help buying my first home. But this comes from a place of genuine frustration about how unfair the system is. And in turn, generational wealth is very stigmatized amongst young people. Therefore, the old money aesthetic had no impact. Because not only do young people think wealthy people are assholes, but worse, they think wealthy people are cringe.
Work-life balance was invented by people who hate the work that they do. You don't need work-life balance, you need work-life integration.
Americans tend to look at old money and wealth in a very aspirational way. And of course, there are people like that in the UK, but I think that young British people are far more aware of how the class system functions in this country. Therefore, this is a reality that we simply cannot aspire to. And it makes total sense that the old money aesthetic picked up on the US side of TikTok because the entire foundations for the country are built on the American dream. The US being the land of the free, the land of opportunity, because the country is so new, the system is so new. There is no the British dream because our class system has been up and running for hundreds of years, and we know that it isn't going anywhere.